I'm Derek, and today we are going to be discussing the recent allegations surrounding Deshaun Watson. I will start by giving some background, introducing the parties involved, and the current situation. Atticus will be diving deeper into the allegations. Declan will be discussing Deshaun Watson's impacted sponsorship deals, and Shay will wrap it all up. For those of you who do not know Deshaun Watson, he is a 25-year-old quarterback for the Houston Texans. He was drafted as the 12th pick in the first round in the 2017 draft, and in his first 4 seasons, he has been given multiple awards and has been selected for the Pro Bowl 3 of those 4 years. At the beginning of the 2020 season, Watson and the Texans agreed on a 4-year, $156 million contract extension. This extension included guaranteed salary through 2022 and kept Watson under contract through the 2025 season. After a tough season for the Texans and all NFL teams, Watson started looking to be traded. Watson and the Texans were in discussion with multiple teams, and just as it looked like a deal was within reach, news broke out about alleged sexual misconduct between Watson and one of his massage therapists. The first 2 lawsuits were filed on March 16, 2021, and since then an additional 20 women have stepped forward. Of the 22 women, almost all have been licensed massage therapists, and most have a very similar story. Pretty much all the recaps include Watson scheduling a massage, him going to their house or them to his, and then sometime in the middle of the massage he pulls his towel off, exposing his genitals. From there, Watson does one of a number of things. He either asks them to touch him, he forces their hand, or he asks them to perform oral sex on him. In one case, an accuser even stated that after she walked in, Watson locked the door behind her, locking them both in the room. Until recently, no one knew who these women were, but about a week ago, 2 of the accusers decided to go public with their story.
Tonight, Deshaun Watson's lawyers are pushing back after one of his accusers comes forward.
So far, 22 women, mostly licensed massage therapists, have filed lawsuits against the Texans quarterback, accusing him of sexual assault or harassment. Now, we didn't know the identity of any of the women until today, when the first to file a civil suit against Watson spoke out at a news conference. Lauren Tallarico reports on what she said, and Lauren, at times she became quite emotional.
Yeah, during a tearful press conference, she talked about how difficult this has all been for her, and she insisted this is not about money. But Watson's lawyers disagree.
I am a survivor of assault and harassment.
She's no longer Jane Doe number 1, but Ashley Solis.
Deshaun Watson is my assaulter and my harasser.
She was the first to file a lawsuit against the Texans star, claiming sexual assault, and now the first to come forward.
I feel a range of emotions: guilt, embarrassment, shame. Some days I feel like a hero, other days I feel like a failure.
The licensed massage therapist says the assault happened in March of last year in her home and that Watson had reached out to her on Instagram.
I blame myself at times, which is insane.
It's very unusual for a woman to come forward.
KHOU legal analyst Carmen Rowe.
Was today's press conference damning for Deshaun Watson?
Absolutely. I mean, hearing from a victim of a sexual assault is powerful evidence that every single potential juror out there heard today.
People say that I'm doing this just for money. That is false. This is about having my voice heard.
Shortly after Solis said that, Deshaun Watson's attorneys released emails from 2 months ago that show she demanded $100,000 to settle.
Does that do anything for her credibility in this case?
I think it has to. I mean, it's inconsistent with what she told us today.
Solis wasn't the only woman to speak out today. A massage therapist named Lauren Baxley, who tells a similar story, allowed a letter she'd written to Watson to be read out loud.
I am furious that the talented and hardworking young black man that gave so many children inspiration is nothing more than a predator with power.
Watson has denied the allegations. Last week, when Solis filed a criminal complaint with HPD, his lawyer said they welcomed that development.
As mentioned in the video, the public is having conflicting emotions about the allegations. Ashley Solis insists that she is not simply seeking money, but seeking justice for all of the survivors. On the other hand, her lawyer's initial contact with Watson was demanding $100,000 in settlement, which makes Solis's motives seem rather questionable. Turning to the lawyers of the two sides, Watson is being represented by Rusty Hardin. Hardin has defended multiple celebrities and athletes in the past, including Scottie Pippen, Warren Moon, Roger Clemens, Kurt Busch, and Adrian Peterson. He was even a member of the legal team representing Arthur Anderson during the Enron scandal in the early 2000s. Representing the survivors is Tony Buzbee. Buzbee is also not new to large public lawsuits. He represented BP after the Deep Horizon oil spill, and because of that, he appeared in the New York Times, where he was called one of the most successful trial lawyers in Texas. Until just recently, Buzbee was keeping most of the information regarding Watson allegations out of the public's eyes. He would tweet rather frequently about adding to the number of lawsuits, but would not release any information to back it up. Articles online say that Buzbee was trying to win in the court of public opinion before Watson was able to defend himself in real court.
I hear you. We are still trying this case in the court of public opinion.
But that's what they want.
That, for now, is what this is. Hopefully, they'll have their days, as you say, in real court.
Yes.
These are all still accusations and allegations.
Correct.
But I must say, as just a viewer, just a bystander watching this unfold, that testimony that we just saw on camera from Ashley Solis was compelling and convincing. And immediately, Rusty Hardin, now the attorney for Deshaun Watson, a celebrity attorney who's defended athletes at the highest levels, immediately responded that Ashley Solis was one of the women who came forward early on
Salt settlement
and sought $100,000 in what Rusty Hardin termed hush money. The point of that is, money or no money, that does not diminish the fact that she says that she was so psychologically and emotionally damaged from her encounter with Deshaun that is still deeply affecting her life. So let's not diminish that as just seeking hush money. And to your point, we now have 22 civil cases filed. We have reportedly another woman who went straight to the police with her allegations. And just the gravity, the mass of the impact,
groundswell of women that's coming forward
is disturbing at the very least. And it doesn't look good for Deshaun.
No.
And by the way, Nike has now suspended their endorsement deal with Deshaun.
Right.
No big shock there. And after these two women have come forward and gone public with their allegations yesterday, it obviously increases the pressure on the National Football League to do something. And we both said they're in a tough spot here because they're sort of waiting to see how it's playing out.
Speaking of the NFL, they have been rather quiet during all of this. They stated that the allegations are deeply disturbing and we take these issues very seriously. Aside from that, they have said that they will be conducting their own investigation, and that's about it. Now that I have introduced the situation and all the parties involved, I'm going to hand it over to Atticus.
Thank you, Derek. In a currently developing topic, the back and forth conversation between all parties involved is crucial. I will now be covering how Deshaun and his representatives are responding to the current allegations against him, as well as how the women in this case are coming forward as it develops. Now a quick recap of the timeline so the communication between parties can be better understood. On March 16, 2021, the first two lawsuits were made public under the names of Jane Doe. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, an additional 20 women came forward also under the pseudonym of Jane Doe. In the early stages, there was little communication between parties, simply press releases from both sides. Additionally, almost all of the communication from both Watson and the accusers have been through the lawyers involved. Tony Buzbee is the liaison for all of the accusers, and Rust Hardin is the liaison for Deshaun Watson. Shortly after the cases were made public, Deshaun Watson released a statement on Instagram. He states, as a result of a social media post by a publicity-seeking lawyer, I recently became aware of a lawsuit that has apparently been filed against me. I have not yet seen the complaint, but I know this. I have never treated any woman with anything other than the utmost respect. The plaintiff's lawyer claims that this isn't about money. But before filing the suit, he made a baseless six-figure claim, which we quickly rejected. Unlike him, this isn't about money. It's about clearing my name, and I look forward to doing just that. He makes it clear that he has no intention to settle with the accusers, believing their claims to be false or fabricated, and will remain adamant about clearing his name. Shortly after his initial response, his lawyer, Russ Hardin, released another statement to TMZ. In the statement, he begins by stating that they are in no way condoning the action or mistreatment of women, and in fact support the cause for women to come forward in situations such as these. However, he then accuses the plaintiff of creating a circus-like atmosphere on social media intended to tarnish the reputation of Deshaun Watson. He goes on to call out the accusing party for not confidently releasing the names of the women coming forward, which he claims is making a full investigation very difficult at the time. Since Hardin's comments, one of the accusers has rescinded their accusation. An additional one has come forward, and 20 of the 22 accusers have now attached their names to their lawsuits. It is clear from this that at least a majority of the accusing parties feel they have the grounds to continue the lawsuits under their real names. Interestingly, though, the discussion between both sides of the aisle have almost all been an attempt to tarnish the others' reputations. Tony Buzbee, the representative of the 22 women currently suing Watson, initially stated they had been trying to contact with the Houston Police Department to continue the investigation. Following this post, the department posted something of their own, describing how there was no evidence of this being true. The women being represented were then met with an onslaught of online criticism. Buzbee then followed up with a statement denouncing the online critics and calling out the integrity of the investigation. The son of Russ Hardin, the representative of Deshaun Watson, is actually a commanding staff officer at the HPD. Buzbee believes this is a reason to not go through the department and instead handle the investigation with external authorities. Although making these claims, 3 of the women then followed up by talking directly to the Houston Police Department, which would then bring the total number of accusers to talk to authorities to 5 of the 22. The most recent comments from either side have been an attempt of Mr. Watson's attorney to dismantle the claims made by the accusers. Since the names have been released, more specific details are now able to be disputed. He denotes one case where the accuser showed up eagerly the next day to give Mr. Watson another massage before he could even book an appointment. Tony Buzbee immediately refuted this claim, stating it was demonstratively false. Buzbee then went on to highlight the inability for the QB to credibly deny any of the actions he is accused of doing. He states, Watson can't deny he sought an unusually large amount of women for massages on Instagram. He doesn't deny he insisted on being nude or nearly nude. He can't deny he wanted more than a massage, and he hasn't credibly denied that something bad happened during these sessions. He instead claims that sexual acts were consensual, and of course, his definition of consent doesn't comport with that of everybody else. The last of these comments were made this previous week, and as a continued process of analyzing the information coming out and coming to a judicial conclusion may take weeks or even months to complete, this will not be the end of the story. The accusers have been put in a difficult situation wherein their personal lives are being ripped apart, adding to the already difficult situation they are in. Deshaun and his team have attempted to mitigate the damage and adamantly refute any of the claims. I will now pass things on to Declan so we can give you a better understanding of how third parties have responded to the allegations.
Thanks, Atticus. Now that we have a better understanding of the timeline of events in the ongoing Deshaun Watson sexual assault scandal and the statements made by each side, I'd like to focus on how third parties, such as his team and his sponsors, have responded to the allegations. Anytime a high-profile individual such as Watson is accused of a crime, it can be expected that institutions affiliated with the individual will release a statement or take some form of action. The first major third party to speak about Watson's allegations was the National Football League. On March 18th, just 2 days after the first 2 lawsuits were filed against Watson, the NFL's Vice President of Communications, Brian McCarthy, released a statement saying, "The allegations are deeply disturbing and we take these issues very seriously. Immediately following the news of the first allegations, we initiated an investigation under the NFL's personal conduct policy. We are continuing to closely monitor all developments in that matter." Now, why was that statement so significant? Well, the NFL's commissioner has the ability to add Watson to the exempt list, which is essentially mandatory paid leave until the investigation is complete. While this may be necessary leading up to the next season, it would be a huge blow to both Watson and his team, the Houston Texans. Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and led the league in passing yards in the year 2020. Because of this, he signed a 4-year extension through 2025, earning an average of just about $39 million a year over that span. If the allegations are true, he should certainly not be playing on the field. But if they turn out to be false, it would be a huge amount of money to spend on an athlete that is on forced paid leave. While the NFL called his accusations deeply disturbing, the Houston Texans statement was very non-committal and neutral. Following McCarthy's statement on behalf of the NFL, the Texans said, "The NFL informed us today that they will conduct an investigation into the allegations made in the civil lawsuits filed against Deshaun Watson. We will stay in close contact with the league as they do. We continue to take this and all matters involving anyone within the Houston Texans organization seriously. We do not anticipate making any additional statements until the NFL's investigation concludes." It was clear that while the NFL was willing to denounce Watson's potential actions, the Texans did not want to release a strongly worded statement towards their quarterback. We may never know, but it would be very interesting to see if they would have responded differently had the allegations been brought up against a lesser-known player or one on an expiring contract that they could easily release. Now that we've covered how the NFL and Texans have responded to Deshaun Watson's allegations, I'd like to focus on how his sponsors are reacting. His sponsors are encouraged to take swift action, as his behavior can largely impact the perception of the company depending on how they respond to these allegations. His major sponsors include companies such as Nike, Beats by Dre, Rolex, and the supermarket chain H-E-B. And as of March 29th, none of them had severed ties with the quarterback. On Wednesday, April 7th, however, Nike was the first of his sponsors to take action. They released a statement saying, "We are deeply concerned by the disturbing allegations and have suspended Deshaun Watson. We will continue to closely monitor the situation." While this statement keeps an open door for Watson to return as a partner in the future, it is nice to see that Nike is taking the situation seriously and is very comfortable permanently severing ties should the accusations be true. Just after Nike released their statement, Beats by Dre announced that they would permanently cut ties with Watson after sponsoring him since he was drafted in 2017. Later that same night, the supermarket chain H-E-B announced that they have ended their relationship with Watson during this offseason and have no plans for future engagement with him. This is one of the most powerful statements made towards Watson, as the company cut ties with him but also shut down any possibility of working again with him in the future. While Nike, Beats by Dre, and H-E-B all spoke out regarding Watson, we have yet to hear anything from Rolex. Should the accusations be true, this may reflect very poorly on the luxury brand. Sexual assault allegations are incredibly serious, and choosing not to say anything and just watch from the sidelines may lead the public to believe that the brand doesn't take these things seriously or does not believe the claims of his accusers. This may hurt the image of the brand and could change their perception for years to come. Now that we've covered how third parties have responded to the claims of Watson's accusers, I'd like to pass it off to Shay to close us out by relating Watson's scandal to other similar recent cases and to touch on what is still to come in this developing story.
Like Atticus mentioned before, 22 women have come forward on this case. Everything that we've heard from his lawyer so far has been an attempt to discredit these women. He's said on multiple accounts and filings and briefings that these women are lying, and he's even gone out of his way to tell the press that he believes the only court that matters is the court of public opinion. But if that's true, we should consider some of the other cases that the public has reacted to, specifically the Larry Nassar and Jerry Richardson case. Larry Nassar was the gymnastics coach of the Michigan State team, and he was accused of molesting upwards of 100 women under the guise of specialized care. He was originally sentenced to 60 years in federal prison, but most recently in 2018, his sentence was increased to 175 years in state prison. Jerry Richardson was the owner and CEO of the Carolina Panthers, and he was engaged in sexual harassment with at least 4 women employees employed by the team. After the scandal broke, over the next 48 hours, Richardson declared his intention to sell the Panthers. He removed himself from operational control, And he also was fined $2.75 million. After that words, there was an investigation to confirm claims that he had been sexually harassing these women and making racist comments for years. Similar to Watson, this has given the NFL precedent to make a decision on both fining and holding these people accountable. In the past 4 days, hearings have started for the case, and 10 out of the accused women decided to show up, 6 of them in person and 4 on Zoom. As we wait to see whether they will potentially be allowed to speak in this case or have victim statements like there was in the Larry Nassar case, or whether it'll all be settled similar to the Jerry Richardson case, we should really make sure to remember that the people hurt in this were the victims. They haven't had a chance to speak out in the press, but we're hoping that with the NFL, they'll make the right decision in the end. We would like to end our presentation by listening to the words of the victim herself, read by her attorney in this trial.
How can such a good man do such terrible things, and with frequency and total disregard for his abuse victims? You are not a good man. Anything good that you have done is poisoned by your true nature. Maybe you suffered abuse yourself in the past, and maybe you have genuinely attempted to convince yourself as much as us, your victims, and the general public that you are without fault. Maybe you need intensive and professional long-term help. But that does not humanize you or the terrors you have inflicted upon countless powerless women. I have written this upon the recommendation of my trauma therapist to forgive myself for not speaking up sooner, to forgive myself for not being braver. But I have also written this so that you can know, without excuse or justification, that you have deeply and irreversibly brought terror to me and others. There is trauma associated with unwanted sexual contact and assault in a place that's meant to bring peace and therapy. But there are even deeper terrors that you have brought in my life. The terror that my partner might not believe me. The fear of abandonment and loss of my job. I have had fears of being attacked in my own home or business after reading comments from your fans and supporters. I have felt nausea and heartbreak over seeing accusations that my pursuit of justice is an attempt at receiving fame or money. Be assured, I have worked with far more wealthy clients and with clients who have far more global celebrity. None of them have perpetrated sexual misconduct towards me, only you. I initially came forward to offer solidarity to other women, but I have since realized that I am deserving of justice as well. I hope the court of law brings that justice, and that you're stripped of both your power and ability to hurt more women, and that you undergo intensive therapy. Lauren Baxley,